Thank you so much for joining me today. So it's the 30th of March, and then we go into the first question. So, what does collective thrivability mean to you?
Collective thrivability. Well, I've been in the inquiry of the difference between sustainability to thrivability from the mid 90s. So very early on, I was thinking about thriving before it became kind of a big meme.
Yes.
And I really saw it's like it was the cusp of being able to name what our social potential is. Like, it's on a spectrum. Collective thrivability is an expression of how we would live as an awakened community or civilization or species or humanity or the earth, all those different facets. To me, because we're all connected, it means that everything must thrive. So otherwise, if there's a part that's not thriving, then we are not thriving. So there's something very bound up with our interconnectivity and the uniqueness of how life moves through each aspect of life, uh, people, and all of creation. And um, so I'm very tuned to that. I've had a passion around when I'm in a very ecstatic space, or a um, love. The love field is very activated. I feel the oneness with all creation, and then I also feel, as we were talking about earlier, the gaps. So I'm very aware of the gaps of that aren't being nurtured, or the suffering or the pain. So I am my own barometer of, am I thriving? Is the we thriving? So that is become also a practice for me of how I feel personally and how I feel the whole. And sometimes I forget, and I'm sort of more wrapped up in the I, and then I'm like, oh wait, this is just the I am in the we. What's happening in the we? So that's a little bit of the context of how that collective might be for me, that it's actually a very felt sense of the whole. And it's not a, like, it's very real, and felt and palpable. So when I'm tapped in, it is a kind of, for as much wakefulness as we have, it is a kind of omniscience. It's like there's clairgnosis. There's just knowing. That's why I have this experience of sometimes shock, sometimes surprise, sometimes disappointment that people and television or movies, people aren't using their intuition. I'm like, seriously? You want me to believe in that character? There's absolutely no intuition going on here. And to me, thrivability would be where all of our gifts are turned on, where we are fully seen, and and that we can move between being an active agent, as in activating a field. So I'm thriving in my leadership and genius, and then seamlessly it shifts like a flock of geese, to someone else stepping into their genius, and I get to breathe in the relaxation, or the tailwind, like, I'm just gonna like sail now on these like on the movement that I contributed to generating and now is being generated with someone else. I long for that. Um, so that's a little bit of collective thrivability. I want to speak. There's a few other elements. Let me just tune in to this. Collective thrivability is related to collective intelligence and wisdom and consciousness. So there is an awakeness that is like vibrationally present. So collective thrivability is also connected to those aspects of how we show up as an I in um, any kind of field that is wanting to be activated, whether it's like a field of sorry, there's some people outside being. I'm gonna close the window because believe it or not, there's a person with their little pet pig, and then they're communicating with the pet pig, and then it's like extremely distracting.
Another field.
I mean, yeah, it's like oink, 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 and I'm like, oh, I can't really handle that right now. That's so funny. So, maybe on a there's so those are the largest aspects of collective thrivability. The more maybe quote ordinary, but nothing is ordinary, would be where we feel peace and where we trust the experience of what's unfolding, where we trust the process, that we know that when we feel something, we can name it in service of the whole field that we're in. Which to me is because I'm such a communicator. When I experience varying degrees of constraint on the gift of the divine that I am, it is not just a personal, there is a personal of like, oh, that doesn't feel so good, but it is the personal to transpersonal experience of like, oh, this is not just me, others are not able to bring their gift in. So how we create the spaces in which the gifts can come in. To me, this is like how we create culture, community practices, civilization, new governance ways of being as well. So peace is a key piece of that, and trust, as I mentioned. And I would say joy and play. So we are fully embodying how we engage. So often this age that we've been in, and that we're coming through into a new time on this earth that I experience viscerally, is that when it was in the mind. And now I really feel that the mind and the heart and the womb field, the full spectrum. It's like I don't want to be separated. I don't want just the mind. I want us all turned on and being able to move between the energies of deep stillness and listening and presence without word into the space of penetrating, naming, engaging, and active listening to receive, to digest and radiate out.
Yes. So the wholeness health.
yeah, the collective thrivability. It's like I am a collective.
Mm.
So I'm a collective as of a being that's multidimensional, and I want to thrive as a whole being.
Mm.
And then I want to thrive with everybody who is around me. So that it's like your gifts are you're you're lit up, and
Yes.
that I know that anything I am doing and then the system that we're in is contributing to that going to the next level.
Mm.
So that conscious engagement with um, and the feedback loops of
Yes.
how are we doing? Oh, that's not working so well. So a
Mm.
kind of seamlessness in how we would integrate the feedback of what works and what doesn't. And because I'm I can feel the vibration of a yearning within the collective for this embodiment of our divinity.
Mm. Very nice, very beautiful. And that brings me to the second question, which you touched on already in what you just shared. But if you could explain a little bit more how your
Mm.
work, supports that transformational change for our collective thrivability.
So the
Mm.
more that I can show up in wherever I am as a clear vessel and channel and authentically being myself,
Mm.
um, is that that is then I can hold space, I can
Mm.
see, I can be aware, I can contribute from the place of who I am becoming, regardless of the circumstances around me,
Yeah,
let's say.
yeah.
Um, uh, so that it's like a frequency holder,
Mm.
uplifting the field and being a clear mirror and not getting um, triggered into karma or reactivity, or I would say my devotion
Yeah.
to seeing the deepest potential and having it as a felt knowing within my body of our collective thrivability and attunement to the evolutionary impulse on behalf of the whole.
Mm.
That is a subtle field catalyst and activator that is often not seen, understood well,
Yeah.
or really understood as a factor vibrationally for collective coherence.
Mm.
Um, so it is a knowing, I hold it,
Yeah.
I see it, I feel it, I am driven to see it manifest.
Mm.
Um, and I'm relentless and devoted to it.
Mm.
So um, I would also say that I go to the places of disturbance
Yeah.
and the edges that are uncomfortable for people, and I may sometimes wield a sword that is a sword to be like to cut away that which is not serving.
Mm.
And I'm still learning how to do that in a way that doesn't like the challenge of the pain of it. That
Yeah.
be like, oh, to really look is like I've been sitting in denial for so long, or this community has been sitting in denial for so long, or we think that we've arrived, or spiritual bypass is our main operating system, or it's a key piece of the operating system, and it's comfortable, or whatever. That I'm trying to learn how to be in the vibration, speak truth to that which isn't serving,
Mm.
and not be deterred when the reaction comes at me, sometimes gently and sometimes um, abusively,
Mm,
um, and as in, oh no, you're not going to actually speak truth here. We're not going to let you,
mm,
or we're going to pretend that we're receiving it, but we're going to tell you that it's welcome, but it's not. That then I go into like a victim. Um, I have, and then I've had to like find my way through that pattern to be like,
mm.
no, I'm not a victim, no matter what happens.
Yes.
So that devotion, how it supports transformational change, is we need to stand in the fire of social alchemy, and
Mm,
we need to be able to do the alchemical work and
yeah.
absolutely devoted to that, as well as to highlighting the potential of who we are, and to um, knowing the greatness of who we can be and embodying that as much as I possibly can, and speaking that with as much clarity and truth as I can.
That's beautiful. Thank you. And that, that beautifully guides us to what I wanted to explore in the third question, which is
Mm,
really about the mapping out of those systemic barriers, the reason
mm,
why sometimes you still need the
mm,
sword. Yeah.
mhm,
And what you
mhm.
were describing very much in the beginning as
Yes.
well, that you are both aware of the potentialities and connectedness as well as where there is the
Mm,
disconnects. Yeah.
mhm,
So,
mhm,
if we're looking again, really sensing into that collective thriveability, which you described so beautifully, the
mm,
experience and the manifestation of that. And then, if we're looking at systemic barriers that are still in place, whether they
mhm,
are personal or
mhm,
organizational or
mhm,
collectively, yeah?
mm.
um,
Yeah.
you see, so the
Mhm,
third one, I'd love to sort of explore a little bit with you. How would you name some of those
mhm,
systemic barriers that you've encountered?
mhm. Yeah, thank you. This is such a great um, question, and such a great, like, it's a living question that
Yeah.
really wants really wants to sit at the heart of any learning culture
Yes.
and civilization that wants to wake up, at whatever level of scale. So, I'll use a little bit of uh, well, okay, so I'll speak to um, those systemic barriers that are um, worldviews,
Yeah.
the the not understanding, or not ever looking at, or questioning the assumptions of how change actually happens,
Mm.
how transformation happens. So I've been sitting inside of whole systems design and evolutionary thinking and evolutionary biology for 20 years.
Yeah.
So I've been studying it, looking at it, seeking to play with it, just like global masters. I've
Yeah.
been very, very fortunate. Um, and I've had freedom to explore at that edge. So, and I have a lot of courage. So I have been looking at those, like, what's in the way
Mm.
is the way.
Mm.
So when you have old world views that are outdated, to really seriously do an upgrade of the operating system,
Mm.
you have to step out of denial and comfort, and the assumptions that you know more than you know,
Mm.
and the not knowing that there is another operating system that maybe is so, like, it's a
Mm.
quantum jump, so there's
Mm.
various levels of where people are, and systems are, and organizations and cultures on that scale of awareness and presence. So the assumptions that we know, thinking that we know more than
Mm.
we do,
Yeah.
the comfort that we want to stay in personally and organizationally, the not knowing how we're going to navigate the abrupt shift in what we are doing and how we're doing it, and to be able to stand in the mystery of the not knowing long enough for that chaos of creation to begin to settle in around us, even as like seeds, so that we're like, oh, yeah. And sometimes it can be like sitting in that, it's the chaos of the elements, and as the alchemists know, it's like that is the great creative process. Just look at the stars exploding. Look at that intensity of fusion, and is like there's destruction that happens in creation. And I don't think that we have been, systemic barriers are, and I like feel this emotion. I'm like, God, we just have not, so much compassion. We have not been educated. And so there's just this not knowing of of what's possible, and how um, to navigate, what is the navigational system that we can use that can actually support us in standing in that. And I think that's, it's been the suppression of the feminine and the feminine qualities on this planet, that have separated us from the sacred evolutionary story. Um, and so those are some systemic barriers. When you look at on the personal, I think I've named, some of those things of our own ability uh, to see the core wounds of humanity as they live in myself, and to not, live in shame or blame or guilt, and to just be able to go, wow, this is not just mine. I am a steward for the core wounds of humanity, and I have the courage to do what it takes to face these things. So that's personal. Organizational, it is very much similar, that but it requires capacity building, leadership training. I would say that one of the systemic barriers around that organizational layer and level is that we have been in the, I just posted something about this, and it's something I speak about often. I'm pretty passionate about the collective we space as a place of inquiry, even as I'm, so devoted to the sovereignty of the I. But it is that we have not been educated about how we can play as and work as a we do it. There are no more mystery schools, really. There are. I don't want to say that, but not in the norm. They're kind of like tucked away, or they're sort of and by mystery school I would say these subtle arts, the understanding of frequency, vibration, resonance, coherence, so that we would, like, and this has to do with like that suppression of the feminine, those like to get things done, the doing, that we're actually like listening really deeply for like, well, hey, I'm feeling this, and that the system would appreciate, even as what you are speaking is an edge for the collective, there would be the, wow, we need to look at this. So when you have collective denial, you can live in illusion. And you can comfortably stay there, status quo, homeostasis. And the minute, if there's, it's kind of like the butterfly, the caterpillar to the butterfly, those imaginal cells are in the culture, and they're going, hey, we see something over here, and the system's going, oh God, that we do not want that. You are asking way too much of us, and we're not going to be able to do it. So we're going to
Mm,
project on you. Poosh. And there's like that squashing down of
mm,
the new DNA.
yeah.
And so it's something about how we break through the stories that we've been told, step into a collective heroes, a collective story, the new narrative,
Yeah.
such that we so we don't do that enough. We're not trained in the
Mm,
collective field. There's been so much of the pyramidal intelligence to build
yeah.
civilization and to build all the tools of what we have, that the not understanding of the worldview of wholeness, or the cycles, or the nonlinear, the quantum realm, not even understanding that we live in a new paradigm worldview that has not yet made its way into sufficiently into systems. And people
Mm,
don't want to share power.
yeah.
So the edge of evolution is of evolutionary change is also sharing power,
Hmm.
and power with, not power over, power
Yes.
among.
Yeah.
So there's that. And that speaking, I think that kind of addresses those collective
Yeah.
levels. I think, let me just say one thing about that collective level. That's that the framework that I love, among other frameworks and syntheses, is the gene keys. In terms of understanding that we actually carry in our blood, like, stories. That's the ability to stand in the space of miracles. That to me is like a power source that
Mm,
we um, don't yet get collectively, that we may dismiss at this critical moment because there's so much of the drive to
hmm.
do. And
Yeah.
I'm a both and girl. So let's do that.
Hmm.
And let's synergize with this field building,
Yes.
um, and this ability to uh, work non-locally. um, I think that I really love some of the work that Shelley Ostroff has been doing,
Yeah.
and the Gaia Field people, and Todd Goldfarb with um, uh, Amplifield, the Unify folks, Lynn McTaggart. There
Mm,
are these, and of course, then the Indigenous wisdom keepers. Um, the way we hold space and the way we hold sacred space, we that is um, there's more there that we are ready to activate in terms of naming what we want, holding it clearly,
mm,
in in holding images, so as symbols within of what it is that we want, and understanding the nature of quantum leaps in the
mhm,
transformation of the systems that we're in.
wonderful. So when you mentioned earlier about there is an other operating system, yeah,
Hmm.
what you just
Hmm.
described now, what you say is that some of the architectural principles of that.
Yeah, that's that. I love that you said that. Yeah, definitely. I'm very keen on how we can name. So I think you're really helping, and others do too. Um, the name those elements of the new operating system,
Yeah,
and then what are the practices in which we embody the new operating system.
that's it.
So some
Yeah.
of that is the training, some of that's then clear the way, get the ego out of the way, the not out of the way, integrated and in union with our essence, or universal humanity, or our, like, I hold, that we are in a process of becoming. We are on an evolutionary journey. This we When we see with evolutionary eyes, we actually um, understand the nature of the process that we are in. And conscious
Mm,
evolution is a very, very powerful meme for that. Oh, we get to be creators. Like Stuart Brand wrote,
Yeah.
we are as gods, we might as well get good at it, when he did
Mhm.
the mission statement for the Whole Earth catalog in the 70s.
Mm.
And now he's said, updated that, and others too. It's like we are gods, and we can claim those those powers of God that we put outside of ourselves as we are creators.
Mm.
And that responsibility, that stewardship, and the training that
Yeah.
needs to go into that. So the new, I would say also that the fragmented mind, that the more we can bring coherence, um, and bring the wholeness to the places of fragmentation from within the person, the collective, and structurally, the more we're just fine tuning, to be able to move into full embodiment of that new operating system.
Mm.
And
Yes.
I want to say one more thing, that's like uh, Fred Pollock's work, from the 50s, of
Mhm.
images of the future. He was studying, just like Toynbee, the rise and fall of civilizations. Why did
Mhm.
civilizations come out of the Dark Ages into the Renaissance? Why was there collapse, like Jared Diamond speaks about?
Yeah.
We now are in this moment of like, we get to go to the next level. And that's why if people don't believe it's possible, they can't stand in a space of coherence. So they need to be patient and
Mm.
let others hold that, because you can't fake vibration anymore. You can't have social cymatics and have the
Mhm.
vibration into the harmonics, the higher harmonics, if your system is in doubt, you
Yeah.
know? So then trust that others are holding that. They're like the vanguard. That's their job. Your job
Mm.
is to like come to follow, first follower. Or, there's always that bell curve. So sometimes the right placement of people, this is collective intelligence. Not everybody does the same thing.
Mhm.
That's not their job. So really understanding that there are certain things that must be activated and created in order for all of the system to be able to be catch up, and to be able to go, oh, now I can come into that frequency, because there's enough holding that my system isn't going to go so out of whack, like out of
Mm.
whack and dissonance. If you have too much dissonance in a field, it will stay dissonant,
Yeah.
even if you have some two anchors or three anchors. But at a certain point, the coherence can snap. That's like in between, when there's new frequencies that come in. I
Mhm.
call it social cymatics, like how we're actually tuning fields, sound,
Mm.
vibration, singing together, harmonizing. These are also powerful tools.
Yes.
So I'm sorry, but the last piece around Fred Pollock's work,
Yeah.
he was asked by the governments of Europe. Um, he was one of the early systems thinkers, right? This is all a
Mm.
lot of systems thinking and chaos theory and complexity science, and understanding that how do we navigate with emergence and complexity? It's not the same as a complicated system. It's not like
Mm.
building a 747. You know,
Yeah.
it's like complexity. So we have to be able to be agile, move, flow,
Mm.
be in collective flow, dynamic. Things change, shift. How well can we adapt and be resilient? These are really features of a new culture. Um, but he identified in all of that work that he was doing, like, what did it take to to bring a culture from breakdown into breakthrough?
Yeah.
And there's lots of causal factors. One causal factor, and I referenced it lightly before, and that is, um, a small group of people on the edge of culture, call them a cultural minority, a creative minority,
Mm.
um, holding a sufficiently coherent, very important frame, words there, sufficiently coherent, positive image of the future. That supports that
Mm.
transition, um, to the Renaissance, and he described that it was 3 generations, 1,000 people. So then we can
Yes.
understand, like, it isn't the masses that we need. We need a smaller group of people in that space of coherence. Urban Laszlo speaks about the chaos window that we're in. We're in a chaos window. Ilya Prigogine, it was, the everything is in chaos as well. And then there is the connectivity. It's non-linear connectivity of new innovative elements coming together that shifts the system. And it's the consciousness and the coherence, like a laser beam, into the field of incoherence that activates something that is a non-linear jump.
Yes, yes, yes. Very, very good. And that brings me to the next question, which is into the heart of systems change. And you hear that, what that means to you.
Well, first thing that I feel is resonance and joy that I'm being asked to go into the heart of it. It's like, that's the path. So it's the direct way to say, I am choosing life. I am choosing sacredness of all life. I am fully devoted to that which I know is possible, and that whatever is in the way is the way, and that our visions of what's possible are actually here ready for us.
Love that. Very beautiful. Yes. So then, as the seventh question, what is your key message to humanity now and the future generations? And when you think of or connect with the future generations from that perspective that you are their ancestor.
I feel this great welling of emotion when I feel the 7 generations, which is very important to me and has been for a while, is that all decisions come from this place of understanding that we make decisions on behalf of. So maybe I'll speak to that. It's just that my message is, I am awake and I am a steward, and I am here and I'm all in, and I am here in full knowing that enlightenment in this lifetime, this chaos window, is absolutely possible. And every cell of my being is absolutely in devotion to that. And I am devoted to, like, bringing that field of wakefulness into greater harmony, to be in service to what I know is absolutely possible, is our birthright, is the time, and that anything that we think is impossible is actually reframed from a different worldview. A more holistic, full-dimensional worldview is absolutely possible as we believe it so. And that there's a lot of joy that is yearning to be liberated, and a lot of the solar power as an infinite resource of our creativity and our love that wants to be unleashed on this planet now.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yes. Beautiful. Very, very deep. Is there anything else in you or through you that you feel like sharing with us?
Mm. I think it's important at this phase as people are, a lot of people are unsure of the how they as the I would be lost in the we.
Mm.
I want to offer that part of the collective thrivability that is distinct from just being submerged in like the commune at the expense of the individual, that it is an utter and pure both and, that the collective thrivability cannot happen without the individual thrivability, and that the individual cannot thrive fully without being held in a collective field.
Yes.
So your liberation and your divinity and your gifts is wound up in my ability to thrive.
Yes. Ubuntu.
Yes, that's the beautiful word. And that ease and grace are companions, and that we can banish the word struggle from our vocabulary, and that we can truly be in the doing of this with more joy and more ease and more grace.
Yes, fully to that. Thank you so much. I really love everything you've shared. Deep resonance. Very, very beautiful.
Thank you. It was a beautiful questions and a beautiful listening field, and I'm grateful to be able to have the opportunity to speak that which is my greatest heart's desire.